everyone, I'm Elaine Romero. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and I'm the owner and clinical director of Safe Harbor Counseling Center with 2 locations right here in beautiful Temecula Valley. And my team is honored to partner with you as business owners in the Temecula Valley to mutually serve the great families in our valley. So I'm here today to talk to you about anxiety in the workplace and to discuss why that should matter to you as an employer, as a manager, or a business owner, because the mental health of your employees greatly impacts your place of business. Now, let's step back for a second. What do I mean about mental health? Now, mental health is a person's overall mental condition or their emotional well-being. And why should that matter to you as a business owner? Well, first, I'm sure, like me, you care about your team. You want your employees to enjoy working for you. In fact, you may even want your team to feel like a family. I know that I'm always striving for that. And if I can cultivate an environment in my workplace where my team enjoys being there, it's good for me too, because I want to enjoy and have fun working with my staff. But in addition to wanting a positive working environment, it's important to understand that the stronger your employees' mental health is, the more productive they can be for your workplace. You see, when your employees are thriving emotionally, they will also thrive at their work-related tasks as well. So for an example, an employee that is mentally healthy is more clear-headed. They are better at problem solving. They get along better with their coworkers and their supervisors. They can be more patient, helpful, and engaging to your customers. So overall, they will have better productivity. This can improve your place of business. And it also makes your customers want to engage with you. They want to visit your place of business and be served by your employees. Who doesn't enjoy being at a place where the employees just seem happy and healthy? Now, there is one area of mental health that our nation is struggling with more than ever, and that happens to be anxiety. According to the ADAA, which is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorders are the most common mental health illness in the United States right now. It's affecting 40 million adults in the US. And the clincher is that anxiety is highly treatable, and yet only 36% of those suffering are actually seeking treatment. So we as clinicians can help people with anxiety. We can help them improve, but sadly, only 36 are seeking help from us. Now, according to the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, the symptoms of anxiety have dramatically increased in 2020. We are 3 times higher than 2019. Which makes sense, right? It's been a heck of a year this year in 2020. People are struggling with their anxiety now more than ever. I can't think of anyone who hasn't had some stress or felt some kind of anxiety this year. Now, did you know that you, as an employer, as a manager, and as a business owner may be one of the only people that can identify this struggle in a person today? Well, why? Because people are more isolated than ever. In fact, work may be one of the only places that they are going. It's one of the only places where maybe their behavior can be observed by others. So you have the opportunity as a business leader to have a major impact on your employees today. Now, I get it. That might feel like a lot of pressure. I'm a business owner, as I said, too. I'm busy, I have a lot on my plate, and sometimes I am just so laser focused on the numbers. Are we thriving financially as a business? And I want to be able to trust my employees to produce, to make sure that they're doing their job and they're doing it well. I don't always have time for hand-holding. And the emotional health of my employees is really not my responsibility, nor is it yours. But when we can take time to really observe and be in tune with our employees and get a sense of how they're doing, they will feel seen. They'll feel cared for, and they'll know that they matter. And studies show that when we simply ask someone if they're okay and then tell them that there's help available, they are much more likely to seek help and support. Believe it or not, just asking your employees, hey, are you doing okay, can make a world of difference to someone. Now, being in touch with my team doesn't just improve the productivity at my place of business, but it also allows me to make a difference in their lives and ultimately in the entire community around me in Temecula Valley. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's talk a little bit about what psychotherapists call the family systems theory. The family systems theory says that an individual is interdependent on many systems. So an individual is part of a system, say, of their family, and then their workplace, and then say their a place of worship, the community, and then the nation. And all these systems will impact them and how they function. And then in turn, they make an impact on all these systems. So you being in touch with just one person, one employee, can impact all the systems that they are part of. Imagine if your employee is a mother, right? And you express care for how she's doing and what's going on in her life with her family. That will make a difference in how she treats and interacts with her husband and her children, and how her family as a whole impacts their neighborhood and their community. According to sociologists, the work environment that promotes a healthy emotional well-being has the power to impact hundreds and thousands of people. Now, imagine if we as business leaders here in Temecula just took those few extra steps to check in, to provide support for our employees. We could make an impact on the entire valley. All right, so how do we do this? First, it's important to understand anxiety a little bit. To do that, we need to have a bit of a basic understanding of the brain. You see, everything that we see, touch, feel, and experience, there's signals sent to our brain, and it enters through the base of our brain. And that's a part of the brain that is considered the primitive part of the brain. And there are parts of that brain, like the amygdala, that scans for danger, for potential threat or chaos. And if we think there's danger, we might go into fight, flight, or freeze. Now, this is important. I need this, right? Because if I walk to the edge of a cliff and I look down, I see the jagged rocks, that primitive part of that brain immediately tells me to jump back and to be cautious. But there are times when the brain at this level is so primitive it doesn't understand the difference between past threat and current threat. And then we can start to really spin into anxiety. Now, according to the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, an anxiety disorder is defined as excessive anxiety and worry more days than not for a minimum of 6 months. Now, anxiety disorders have a very wide umbrella. We have generalized anxiety disorder, we have obsessive compulsive disorder, there's PTSD, which is caused from trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, there's social anxiety disorder, and so on. Now, not everybody who suffers from anxiety or panic attacks will meet the full criteria of an anxiety disorder. But imagine all that's been going on in our nation, all the stress and anxiety that we pile on top or being piled on top of people right now. If they have any pre-existing anxiety or an anxiety disorder, that is a lot for a person to cope with. So it's important to know the symptoms of anxiety and what that looks like in your workplace. So let's talk about also the stressors that can lead to anxiety as well. So let's actually start with the symptoms. So some of the symptoms of anxiety are nervousness, restlessness, a sense of impending doom or danger, an increased heart rate, rapid breathing, or a hard time catching breath. It could even be seen as sweating or trembling, feeling weak or tired, having a hard time concentrating. But what does that look like in the workplace? What might you actually see happening to your employees? You might see a sudden change in their behavior. Maybe they're late for work a lot, they're just getting really distracted, their speech is very rapid. Maybe they're kind of displaying a lot of pessimism. They're worried about things that they didn't used to be worried about. They're more reactive, they get upset more easily, or they're overwhelmed and breaking down on things that they didn't used to have problems with. It wasn't an impact on their tasks before. Or maybe they're even looking jittery or having a startled, an exaggerated startle response. Or you could actually even see an employee actually having a panic attack. Now, performance-wise, what you might see is they might start making excuses not to be part of projects or promotions. They might avoid social events and just kind of come to work, isolate, nose to grind, and not really be engaging with other people. They might struggle to tackle a problem head on, or you might see a lot of procrastination. And they might start getting less patient or irritable with your customers. Overall, you might see a decrease in their performance. Now, all of these symptoms could be caused by something else, but every one of them could also be associated to anxiety or other struggles with mental health. Now, I get it. You may be thinking, Elaine, if I saw that in an employee, it would be time to go. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that kind of slack. I need my employees to get in and do their job. However, what if checking in with them or reaching out to them or just directing them toward help could make a difference? Certainly, every business owner would need to assess that based on their own business. Now, what can actually cause anxiety in a person? Well, we talked partly about what's going on in the brain, but there also are a number of factors that can lead to anxiety or exasperated, I should say. Sometimes it's personal family issues or stressors. Maybe an employee is going through marital problems or divorce or a death of a loved one. It's also possible they're having problems with their housing or financial issues. A lot of people are very stressed financially right now. It could even be a difficult medical diagnosis of themselves or their family members that maybe they're not sharing with others. It could even be all these external stressors we're going through, things like COVID and quarantine and all the racial tension, the political tension that's been going on in our nation. It also could be past trauma. And for some people, it's hereditary. There are some people who are just a little more dialed up in their brain, and their brain thinks there's a threat when there's not, and they feel more anxious. So taking time to get to know your employees, having a brief understanding of what their personal life is like for them and what's going on can do wonders. If you know an employee is struggling with any of those stressors, they may be suffering from anxiety in your workplace. Now, that's not to say that people going through these issues or people that struggle with anxiety can't thrive emotionally. A lot of people do a fantastic job of coping with those things and a fantastic job of coping with any kind of anxiety disorder or even just symptoms of anxiety. But if you observe any of the symptoms we mentioned earlier, or you know an employee is challenged by any of these stressors, you might want to touch base with them, simply asking, how are you coping? This expression of care and acknowledgement allows the employee to know that they can be human, right? A human being just being human. We want to let our employees know that it's okay to be a human in our workplace. And believe it or not, this acknowledgement will go a long way on your team. Sometimes when people go through huge loss and grief, we around them feel this need to fix them, to make them feel better. But a lot of times people just need acknowledgement that they're going through a difficult time. So overall, In this video, I wanted you to understand what are the symptoms, possible symptoms of anxiety, what are the stressors that could possibly cause anxiety, and don't forget to check in with your employees. Acknowledge that they are human. These are simple ways that you can be in better touch with your team. Now, we have a second part to this series where I'm going to go over some more specific ways of how to support your employees that are suffering from anxiety or other mental health challenges. I hope that you're able to tune in.